Hey, what's up, guys? Dork Sparks bringing you some Dynasty Warriors news. Some good news, actually. So, the first one, over the weekend, I read an article stating that the developers are actually working on a massive DLC for Origins. Not sure what that, they didn't say anything about that DLC, but it's given me some ideas and kind of one of the reasons why I wanted to make this video, just because I'm a huge Dynasty Warriors fan. I've loved this series since the original. I played every single one except for a couple of the Extreme Legends variants and Dynasty Warriors 9. I've heard too many bad things about Dynasty Warriors 9, and I have to take it with a grain of salt because the community knows what they like when it comes to Dynasty Warriors. And if Dynasty Warriors 9 was bad even for the hardcore audience, then I'll believe them. Plus, it didn't really look that appealing to me as far as like the open world stuff goes, because apparently the open world is a little bit bland. But either way, as far as that DLC goes, I do not know what's in store for it. They did say it's a massive DLC, so I'm gonna assume that they're going to be expanding and actually kind of diving more into the actual Three Kingdoms era, because Dynasty Warriors Origins is actually, as it states, the origins of the Three Kingdoms period. So you're playing before the formation of the Three Kingdoms. Battle of Chirby is actually the beginning of the Three Kingdoms period. So after the battles won by after the battle was won by Sun Quan and Liu Bei's coalition forces, Cao Cao retreats, but then after that, that's also the start of the Three Kingdoms period. More than likely, the DLC is actually going to start taking place probably with maybe like laying the actual foundations of each kingdom, maybe going up to possibly, I don't know, maybe Battle of Fan Castle, when the Three Kingdoms, at least at that point, because around the time of Fan Castle, the kingdoms of Shu and Wu were basically aligned. They had a soft allegiance, and Guan Yu basically destroys that allegiance by attacking Fan Castle because they wanted more. He wanted to make sure that Shu had a larger control of Jing province, and that ends up becoming a whole ordeal, and Wu and Wei decide to team up and they end up defeating Guan Yu. Guan Yu gets killed at that battle, and from there things kind of start to diverge a little bit more, and then everyone is basically on their own. I would love to see the DLC go up to that point. I'm not too sure, because with how Origins kind of depicted the entire story, moving from the beginning of the Yellow Turban Rebellion up to the Battle of Chirby, there was a lot, and I mean a lot of battles in between. They covered a lot more battles than any other Dynasty Warriors game would ever cover, because in previous Dynasty Warriors titles, it kind of covers the bare minimum, like the most important battles, and then from there it would go up to the Three Kingdoms period. So for example, Dynasty Warriors 4, 5, and 6, I think Dynasty Warriors 7 did the same thing. It would basically start you off with the Battle of the Yellow Turbans, and that's actually the same battle that also leads you to defeating Zhang Jiao, of the leader of the Yellow Turbans. And then from there you go into the Battle of Hulao Gate, and depending on which Dynasty Warriors you were playing, you would go from Battle of Hulao Gate to Battle of Sishui Gate, or in some of the earlier titles you would just do Battle of Hulao Gate, fight Liu Bu, and then take on Dong Zhuo, and that was it. And then after that, it's basically Battle of Chirby, with a battle or two before that. Again, just kind of depends on which Dynasty Warriors you're playing, because a lot of the titles, they would always kind of add or subtract a battle or two before the actual formation of the Three Kingdoms. Here in Origins, there are so many battles. There's hundreds of battles to do for each faction, Cao Cao, Liu Bei, and Sun Jian, before moving on to Battle of Chirby. A lot of their battles are actually unique to that specific faction too. Once you start picking a faction to serve, especially for me, Wu, I think with Wu you have a lot more battles to participate in than any other faction than between Cao Cao and Liu Bei. Origins also boasts probably the best narrative as well as out of any other Dynasty Warriors game. On Origins specifically, it's very heavy on the storytelling, whereas opposed to previous Dynasty Warriors titles, it's more like a summary of what's going to happen before this next battle starts. Here in Origins, it's more or less diving into that summary and actually opening up a book, rather than looking at maybe like a 2 or 3 minute cutscene and then boom, bam, you're in that next battle. And then from there, you move on to the next series of important battles or historical battles or whatever you. But here in Origins, it breaks everything down, and you can really actually just enjoy the story. And maybe even for someone like me who kind of has delved a little bit into the Three Kingdoms period, I've learned a little bit more from Origins. Now, whether that new stuff I've learned is historical or not, I'm not too sure. It's kind of something to appreciate when it comes to the fact that Dynasty Warriors in general was never really meant or it was never really about its storytelling, even though there is the story there and you can follow the events as you see fit, and a lot of it is historically accurate. But being able to follow it from point A to point B rather than something like in a previous Dynasty Warriors title where it takes you from point A to point D, wondering what the hell happened to points B and C, something Origins actually corrects, and I kind of really appreciate that. However, whenever you think of Dynasty Warriors, or whenever you hear of the name Dynasty Warriors, you usually always think about the combat. Now, for a lot of people, the combat is usually hit or miss because of how it's a very repetitive combat system, which means you do get tired of it pretty quickly. That's one thing that Dynasty Warriors has always been known for, is the repetitiveness, but the gameplay loop has always been kind of fun, especially when you haven't played for a while and then you come back to it. You kind of have the itch to play Dynasty Warriors. You pick it up, you suddenly remember just how much fun it is, but then, you know, that fun can only last for so long. And that's kind of why every single title, or at least a majority of the titles, Dynasty Warriors 6 being the big one, which was changing the way the combat works, getting rid of the combos. That was the big thing in Dynasty Warriors 6, as I mentioned earlier. Samurai Warriors, though, didn't really feel this kind of issue because Samurai Warriors basically always stuck to the original Dynasty Warriors formula, which was having a 6 attack combo string and 7 heavy attacks, which always preceded a basic attack. Depending on where you were in the combo string, the attack would vary, whether it was a single attack type of target attack, or it was an AoE type of attack, or it was kind of like a little bit of in between, like more of like a balanced attack. Either way, Samurai Warriors never deviated from that formula, whereas Dynasty Warriors 6 did, but then they kind of went back to it, to the standard formula in Dynasty Warriors 7 and 8. I don't know if Dynasty Warriors 9 was like it. Again, never played it. But here in Origins, they actually, a good change. It was actually a pretty fun change, actually. So there are attack strings in here, just your normal basic attack strings, but depending on the weapon type that you're using, it either has an infinite combo string or it has a standard 6-string attack pattern followed by some charge attacks. But the thing that changes is, again, depending on the weapon that you're using, those charge attacks will actually vary. There's also a drawback to it, and that's some weapons like the twin pikes, they only have one form of charge attack, or probably like even at least one variation of the charge attack, which kind of makes it feel like you're playing a more modernized version of the Dynasty Warriors 6 combo system, which was, again, it was a terrible combo system to begin with. And some of the weapons in Origins, mainly the twin pikes, feels like I'm playing a Dynasty Warriors 6 with that specific combo string. There's just not a whole lot of variety to it, and because of that, the twin pikes are quite possibly my least favorite weapon in the game, just because of the fact that there are no attack variations I can come up with. It's all the same exact charge attack, no matter where I'm at in the combo string, whether it's the first attack or the 6th attack, the neutral attack, the heavy attack, the charge attack is going to be the same. So that's kind of where it kind of falls back on. The other thing too with Origins is because they limit it to just a select few characters, basically characters who took part in the Yellow Turban Rebellion up to the Battle of Chirbi. We don't have the full realization of the entire roster, and even though we only have a limited few generals to mess around with as companions, there's even less generals to pick that aren't even playable. Like Cao Cao and Liu Bei, it's kind of a shame we don't get to play as any of the leaders in this game. And on top of that, a lot of the weapons being used are being shared by several of the characters, which is also kind of a drawback. Like Sun Ce and Huang Gai, they both use the same fist gauntlet weapon, which actually kind of sucks because Huang Gai was known for using a very unique weapon. I think out of all the characters in Dynasty Warriors past games, he had the most unique weapon, which was either a club mace, or if you were looking at Dynasty Warriors, I believe it was Dynasty Warriors 7. It was either 7 or 8. He had an even more unique weapon, which was a canoe, and he had a lot of water-based attacks. It was a pretty cool, like very, very much an AoE-based weapon, good for horde clearing. Apart from that, it just kind of falls flat a bit as far as the combo system go. Not the combo system, the weapons go. Some characters do have their unique weapons still, like Guan Yu, for example. By historical standards, Guan Yu was always known to be carrying what was known as the Green Dragon, which was a legendary crescent blade that he always used, and so that's always been his weapon type in Dynasty Warriors. He's never been seen with any other type of weapon. I can't remember in the original Dynasty Warriors 1 and 2 if he had something else besides the crescent blade, but it wasn't until Dynasty Warriors 4 that they kind of perfected the design of the Green Dragon, which is his weapon, the name of his weapon in the game. But in Origins, it's just known as the crescent blade. But for Dynasty Warriors fans, it's the Green Dragon for us.
telling them.
Now, for the DLC itself, I can quickly list some of the major battles that take place shortly after the Battle of Chirbi. So let's start with Shu. The first battle post Chirbi is the Battle of Chengdu. As each faction goes their separate ways, Liu Bei is looking to expand his forces and begins by capturing Yi province in the south. This battle is also where Pang Tong dies, so assuming this will be in the DLC, we'll most likely have a route that will allow us to save him. What makes Yi province so significant is that it's also where the final battle between Wei and Shu takes place and sees Liu Bei's son and successor of Shu, Liu Shan, surrender, and ultimately leads to Shu becoming the first of the three kingdoms to fall. The next major battles for Shu after that include Mount Dingjun, Battle of Fan Castle, Yiling, Tianshui, Jieting, Chen Kang, and Shu's last major battle before they start failing as a kingdom is Wujiang Plains. But if the DLC continues on with the story, my guess is it'll probably go as far as Fan Castle, which sees Wu and Wei forming a temporary alliance to take on Guan Yu, who's ultimately defeated and killed. It's a good midway point for the DLC to possibly end, since it does involve all three kingdoms in one major battle, just like Chirbi, which makes it the perfect setting for Wu and Wei players to face off against Guan Yu, the God of War, in a final boss battle. And who knows, maybe that boss battle will be something as similar to either Liu Bu, most likely Liu Bu's boss fight, but I would love to see Guan Yu, I don't know, something cool, kind of like with Zhang Jiao's boss fight. Zhang Jiao's boss fight was pretty cool. I would love to see something else like that. As for Wu's story, we have several major battles: Battle of Nanjun, Jing Province, Hefei, Rushu Ko, and Fan Castle. It's worth noting that Shu has fewer battles between Chirbi and Fan Castle than Wei and Wu, but all of these battles are actually listed in chronological order from the first battle after Chirbi to the last battle before Fan Castle. Wei's list of battles, however, after Chirbi leading up to Fan Castle is Tong Gate, Hefei, Mount Dingjun, and Fan Castle. So some of these battles overlap each other, which means we'd actively be fighting against one of those said kingdoms. Shu does have a larger list of battles, mostly due to Liu Bei trying to gain a proper foothold to establish Shu, while Cao Cao and Sun Quan already had established kingdoms of their own. The DLC might not even go as far as Fan Castle, because when it comes down to it, Origins is still an original story being told through the eyes of Ziluan, so we have to count the DLC will include more story elements specifically on Ziluan and Bailuan, as well as filler battles possibly designed around those two. That remains to be seen though, since each kingdom only has a handful of historical battles between Chirbi and Fan Castle, and that can still provide a ton of story content regardless of whether or not it's going to be more focused on Ziluan and Bailuan. Either way, that's kind of just my opinion on how the story is probably going to progress. I'm pretty sure it's still going to be focused a little bit more on Ziluan and Bailuan. I'm pretty sure that they have a story to finish. It might finish midway through the Three Kingdoms period, or who knows, maybe if they actually go through with the Origins sequel, maybe their story actually ends with the ending of the Three Kingdoms period. Have to wait and see what happens, but either way, I'm excited for what the DLC is going to bring. That pretty much wraps up kind of what's going on with Origins. One other thing I would like to note is I would love to see more spin-off series. There is basically the parallel series to Dynasty Warriors, which is Samurai Warriors. Samurai Warriors takes place during feudal Japan, and you know what? That's kind of where I learned a lot of Japanese history. In fact, I kind of know a lot more about Japanese history than I do Chinese history, just because feudal Japan, that era in particular, has always fascinated me in particular. And then, of course, there's also the spin-off series, the spin-off Musu series. They're referred to as Musu series of games, but still, they're Dynasty Warriors games made by the same developers. One, obviously, I don't know if many of you guys have heard of this game, but it was from back in the PS3 era, was Dynasty Warriors Gundam, which actually saw 3 games in total: Dynasty Warriors Gundam 1, 2, and 3. If I remember right, Dynasty Warriors Gundam, the first one, had Hiro Yui as the main protagonist. Hiro Yui being for those of you not too familiar with Gundam, or just you can't keep up with Gundam lore. I know I can't either. I kind of struggle keeping up with all the many different timelines of Gundam. I kind of lost track of what happened with Iron-Blooded Orphans and of course the Witch from Mercury. I have no idea where those two Gundam verses sit in the whole Gundam verse itself, like the multiverse of Gundam. I'm just mostly familiar with Gundam Wing and Mobile Suit Gundam. Gundam Wing obviously being Hiro Yui, the main protagonist. That's who you play as in Dynasty Warriors Gundam. Pretty fun series. And then of course there's another spin-off series. I think it's called Berserk in the Band of Hawk. Obviously, if you're familiar with Berserk, basically Dynasty Warriors in the Berserk universe. And then we can't also forget these other spin-off series that was Nintendo specific, which was a Legend of Zelda game that was actually given the Dynasty Warriors treatment. I can't remember what that was called. I never got a chance to play that, even though it looked pretty fun. I'm a huge Legend of Zelda fan. And then, of course, there's also the other spin-off series. So Dynasty Warriors has had a few spin-off series, but I think lately they've kind of trickled down a bit and kind of relaxed a bit as far as Dynasty Warriors-esque games are concerned, like the spin-off games. I'm pretty sure because Dynasty Warriors Origins took up all their time. That's also Attack on Titan 1 and 2. I never played the first Attack on Titan, but I do have the second one. I love how they were able to implement the Attack on Titan universe with Dynasty Warriors mechanics. Somehow it works. You going up against several Titans at once. I think the most Titans in any given map, I think like towards the end of the story campaign in Attack on Titan 2, I think you're up against, I think it's around 60 Titans, 60 or 70 Titans, and there's quite a few boss Titans in there as well, a few abnormals and such. So it's amazing how there's a ton of variety in Titans all mixed in there. It actually works. It somehow just works. It's a fun game. I still play it from time to time, because if I don't play it for a very long time and then I try and come back to it, I just forget how to play, because that is a really difficult game to master. But either way, I just wanted to mention those games just because there is a whole lot of Dynasty Warriors to go around. It's not just the main Three Kingdoms period Dynasty Warriors that we're all familiar with. Samurai Warriors is there too. Samurai Warriors is a very faithful companion, sister, whatever you want to call it, to Dynasty Warriors, because it retains all the same combat mechanics. It's just different characters set in a more modernized time, which is feudal Japan, late 1600s, I believe. And it's just a really cool series. Plus, it has its own set of music as well, like Japanese theme music. One other thing I love about Dynasty Warriors, the music is amazing. I can recount a whole bunch of soundtracks going all the way back to Dynasty Warriors 4, and it's always a treat to be able to come and play a newer Dynasty Warriors game and hear remixes or reduxes of some of the more popular ones, like In Full Bloom. Again, when it comes to Dynasty Warriors, either you're familiar with the gameplay or you're familiar with the soundtrack. There's never been a Dynasty Warriors game that's never had a miss on its soundtrack. Every single soundtrack for every version of the Dynasty Warriors games that ever come out have all been amazing. Even Dynasty Warriors 9, I have never played Dynasty Warriors 9, but I've listened to some of the music, and it's still amazing. It's just as amazing as it was in previous iterations. But for me personally, I think Dynasty Warriors 4 has some of my favorite ones, obviously In Full Bloom. And that about wraps it up for this video for everything Dynasty Warriors related. Super excited to see what that DLC is going to be churning out. There is no release date. All they did was they said they announced it. They're working on a major DLC for Origins. Can't wait to see what it is. Hopefully it is more story elements expanding on the Three Kingdoms period. I'll never say no to more DLC expansions for Dynasty Warriors. If Koei Tecmo has faith still that the game will be popular in the West, then so do I. Many thanks for watching, and until then, this is Dorksparse signing off.